Hey, I want to introduce our YouTube channel and our YouTube video. This is Marcus Tuttle. I'm a real estate guy for a lot of years, and so is David Sugg. We are talking about real estate on the wide world of real estate. And I sound like Wolfman Jack or an alligator because I'm a little bit under the weather, but I hope you enjoy.
Is this your Jamboard? How do you establish value?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I referenced it last time whenever I just attended that CE from that appraiser. It was actually revealing. A little bit revealing because on CMAs they want you to plus or minus stuff.
Right.
You're like, well, let's just whittle it down to what I want to see. When in actuality, the lady had a basis. They got to do some training, appraisers. I mean, it is a thankless profession until you start getting your license and getting your master's license. So there's degrees of their licensing.
Yeah.
So they need to work under somebody for a while, and then they become an independent appraiser. So there's at least 2 different designations. I think maybe even more.
Yeah. I think they got the hammer brought down on them after the 07-08 crash. I think they got a little more stringent even in the appraiser world, not just in the lending, but how they derive value. It's pretty highly regulated.
Yep. So a bank can't directly choose their person because the holy trinity of conspiracy seem to be a realtor, a mortgage person, and an appraiser.
Yeah.
Well, what do you want to talk about? What have you been up to? Hammering stuff?
Yeah, I'm refinishing floors right now.
You got a drum sander?
I went and rented one. Rented it Sunday. Drum and an edge sander. Yeah.
You got skills?
I mean, the sanding is kind of the easy. It's not the easy part, but it's the simple part, you know. Just keep fucking sanding.
I mean, it's sure is easy to dig a hole, isn't it?
I have, but I mean, now I'm pretty good at keeping it moving, you know. So I'll leave like 4 foot from one edge. So I start it and do the first, if it's a 14-foot room, I do 10 foot going there. Then I cut back the other way and do that. And then the main thing is just hitting it with all, 3 or 4 cycles, go from the 36 to the 60 to the 80 to the 120 and just letting it do its thing. But after I get off that like 60 grit, it's pretty simple. It's pretty good.
Some real rough floors. I've seen some professional operations just go perpendicular to it. I'm like, what are you doing? And they're like, yeah, man, it's rough. So they hit it perpendicular and then work it out, If you're really rough, you can go diagonal. I've had some success doing that. You did that?
Yeah. No.
Well, you're really cutting it if you're going diagonal or perpendicular. I mean, you're really cutting into it.
Yeah. I hadn't never really thought about working it out. I think somebody did that on one of the floors in our house. There's lines running. I'm like, and I've redone them twice, but I could never get those out of it. I just left it. So.
Yep. Cut it sideways.
Yeah, you get enough poly on it, throw a rug down. I mean, it's all good.
So are you gonna paint the walls after you get all that dust on there?
We already got all the painting done, Marcus. It's all done. So now we got to go clean it all up.
Oh, yeah. Put that in your manual for next time.
Yeah, well, it's tricky because I don't like. I've done it both ways, and neither ways am I really happy. So it's like even when I do the floors first, it's like then trying to take care of the floors through the whole job. I hate that, because I'll spend $300 getting that ram board, that high quality.
Yep.
I put that down everywhere, and it's just. So I've probably done 4 of these projects, and 2 of them I've done like I'm doing now, and 1 we did the floors first, and it just made me nervous the whole time. So
people kick up on the edge, rip that tape up.
Yeah, I mean,
over.
Especially if we're doing tile and paint and electricity. I mean, just so there really ain't no easy way to break the egg and put it back together. It's just always sucks. So.
You got to help her on your floors?
Rachel came and helped a little bit. She was picking stuff up and saying things like, that spot needs to be sanded more. That spot needs to be sanded more.
Quality control, QC.
Yeah. Signed up, had to renew our line of credit on a house. It's up every year. And I was concerned that they were going to renege on me because just to crap tax returns last year. But it went through. So we'll have that for opportunities coming up in the next.
Do you have to do appraisals, another round of appraisals?
They did an AVM. They did a drive-by. Mm-hmm. And prices have gone up significantly. So I really wasn't worried about that. But they were really pushing on me about that income thing, Don't
worry about it.
Yeah.
Did you see the value?
I'll pay you back.
Did you see the AVM?
Well, you hear this over and over again, like people like the Burr. I mean, it's a Burr Facebook page. Like, yeah, just buy it, rehab it, renovate it, and refinance. It's like, and I that just hadn't been my story. It just hadn't worked out that way. Let me see your tax returns. So.
Wait, my tax returns?
Yeah. What about asset-based lending?
So you sweat it pretty good?
Yeah, but
it was just internal. You're like,
I've been shot down by so many banks this past 3 months. I was kind of sweating it, honestly. Yeah. But I've been looking at Tom Berry's stuff and looking at Bo Eckstein's stuff. They definitely seem like good products for people like you and I.
But what is that product?
They're doing all kind of stuff. They're doing 30-year fixed rate for rental properties. They're doing fix and flips. They're doing wrappable products, so you can buy something, put a note on it, then wrap it to an end buyer. But real creative lending. But it's still, from what I've seen of Tom's stuff, it's still 60% LTVs for a cash out. It was 60% LTV. What am I gonna? I mean.
Gee, thanks.
Yeah. I mean, the guy who's looking for that has got free and clear properties. And if they got free and clear properties, they probably don't want, to just take out 60%. They don't want to sell it and get all their equity, or just keep it free and clear. So I think that's a big job, though, is finding the loan products that work for us and going after them. They're just not readily available to me.
Well, you ever thought about going to those Quest mixers?
I've been to a bunch of them. Gone to a bunch of them.
They have those virtual ones. I don't know how you make rapport over the internet.
Yeah, I don't know.
Trust me with your money.
Yeah. Promissory notes.
Your security.
You're secure.
You'd be a manager of a trust.
Yeah.
What are you going to talk about?
I don't know. Mike Gunn shared an interesting article with me today about, let me grab it right quick. Let me grab it. There's been an awful lot in the news lately and in social media about, the investment firms in Wall Street buying investment properties, and there's been pros and cons, and there's been some people who said, hey, they're not buying that many houses. In the grand scheme of things, they're buying, maybe 1 or 2%. That's not a whole lot. But the interesting thing is kind of not how many they're buying, but what they're buying. The article goes on to say, it's not just that they're buying houses all over the place, but they're buying the houses that would make the most sense for first-time home buyers. Growing populations, low cost, and in those markets, they really are buying them up. It says Invitation Homes, which operates in 16 cities, with the biggest concentration in Atlanta, where it owns 12,506 houses. That's not much compared to the 80,000 homes sold in Atlanta each year. Invitation Homes has bought 90% of the homes for sale in some of the zip codes in Atlanta in early 2010. So, it's not that they're buying a whole lot in the whole global market of Atlanta, but in certain areas, they're buying them up in certain subdivisions, in certain spots, they're getting them all they can. And also just talks about, the kind of money that they're using. It says it's getting $1 billion loans at interest rates around 1.5%.
Nice.
In practice, that means that Invitation Homes can afford to tack on an extra $5,000 to $20,000 to the purchase price of every home and still get the house at the actual cost as a homeowner. We start going up against these people. It's no contest. Also, they're more inclined to buy needing repairs or needing something, whereas a homeowner wants it, turnkey, ready to go. So it's interesting. I think we're going to see a whole lot more of that. There was that article a couple months ago where somebody did the first, build to rent subdivision. I think it was 110 homes out in Conroe, Texas. It went on the auction. I think Fundrise bought it, for just almost $100 million. Yeah, I mean, just a crazy amount of money.
Sell in bulk, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was a home builder, a subdivision developer went out and built it to rent. That's unprecedented. We've never seen anything like that. And so where does that leave us? I mean, it's like, I know a lot of people are like, hey, man, there's still deals out there. You just go find them, keep working. But a lot of my investor friends are complaining about, cap rate compression, not being able to get the returns, just not wanting to wade into the bidding wars. So I do think there's still money to be made. But for a lot of us who kind of came up on easy street, the 2010, 11, and 12 run, it's really hard for me to get out of bed and want to go fight for these deals. Like I don't want to go do that. We were buying houses for $15,000, $20,000 that now are selling for $60,000 and $80,000. We were buying stuff for $40,000, it's now selling for $140,000. Like I don't get excited to go throw in a 80% of value offer on that.
Did you just say you bought it for 40 and now you can sell it for 140?
Yeah, in the Fondren area for sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah, man. Dealing with a seller, like, look me in the eye. Never mind them. Look me in the eye.
Yeah. You want to close this transaction as painlessly as possible. Let's do this. So,
I've heard I can't cite my source, but talking about becoming a rental nation.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, the QAnon theorists would have a field day with that. They don't want you to have anything.
Well, we've definitely seen the wealth gap get very wide in the past decade. I've got my set of friends that I have here in Jackson now. It's the longest set of friends I've ever had before. Almost 11 years I've been here in Jackson. And I've got friends that I've known that have been renting the whole time. And now to see where they are 11 years later, still in the job, still renting, maybe they bought a few cars or done a few things. Now they're trying to enter the housing market, whereas I've been buying constantly as much as I can for the past 6 years. I mean, it's different worlds, where I am and where they are. And we were on the exact same footing 10 years ago. And those aren't bad people. They just haven't been buying assets for the past decade, just haven't been doing it. So we're going to see that is going to be more and more of a push. Now they're trying to buy houses, and it's like the most expensive time to buy them, or it feels like the most expensive time. I don't know that it is. I think it might get more expensive.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about my jam board.
Yeah.
So what do you do? Many times I just like get comps in the area and say, all right, $100, $200, $300 a square foot.
Oh yeah.
And just honestly times it by the square footage.
Yeah. The first thing they do in an appraisal is they what's it for? What are we doing this for? Yeah. The appraiser's going to come in and say, is it a purchase? Is it a refi? What's going on? And it's almost kind of a loaded question. It's like, it doesn't really matter what it's for, Mr. Appraiser. Give me the fucking value of it, Sure. But that's what they want to know. What's it for? And all of a sudden, that's kind of what dictates where we're going with this. So if we're looking for a fix and flip, okay, well, we're going to look at everything that needs to get done to it. Whereas if we're looking at just a new purchase, maybe we'll depreciate. Maybe we're only going to notice red flags, but we're not going to pick everything out. I think that's where I have a hard time. It's like, my sister says, what's the value of the house? Well, shit, compared to what do I want to pay for it? What's the value to an investor?
Right. Well, I just made some notes off of what was presented at the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think on the last recording we did, we found out that Zillow's estimates, even though they were recently sold, it looked like Zillow still had something to say about the value, what they recorded as their estimate, even though there's a recent sale. Right? You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, this lady, she's a well-regarded appraiser here, and she said she's just the basics of finding value, access value is to access comparable sales and do enough searching to discern how much someone's willing to pay for a lot. So they start with 2 years out. Are you looking at my thing? You looking at my Jamboard?
Yeah, I see. Yes.
Okay. So they always minus out the lot. So they'll do enough searching in an area to figure out how much a lot sold for within the last 2 years and just minus that out of all the comparables. So you got 3 comparables and then you're going to minus out the lot. And now you can start talking about the amenities of a house.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing is a little telling is what they call paired sales, just paired sales analysis. It's a technique to determine a feature's value within a property, like, I don't know, garage or brick or extra lot or pool, something like that. So when an appraiser finds 3, for example, 3 recent small office building sales where the primary difference is the presence of brick facade or a sizable parking lot, then the appraiser can make 2 sets of comparisons, one with the brick facade to the one without, and one with the parking lot to the one without. And these pairings are called paired sales. So back to that part where I've never known what to do is like, well, how much you got to minus away for this one? And then I bet a bunch of realtors or laymen don't have a clue, and I'm guilty as charged. But so on the paired sales, so your subject doesn't have a pool and is on a corner lot, right? So your first comparable has a pool and the comparable doesn't. So when the comparable has an amenity and the subject doesn't, you take away from the comparable, which is a little bit counterintuitive or not intuitive at all. But then on comparable 2, the comparable has a corner lot and the comparable 2 doesn't have that amenity. You add whatever that paired sales analysis you kind of figured out within that grouping, which is probably geographic. You add that number back to the comparable, so you can either take an average or take a median or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
With all this adding and subtracting, what you're basically saying is highly manipulable. They can really get fancy with it. Like, well, we took the pool away and we added a bathroom.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And then they had this cool term like this. I didn't write it on the Jamboard, but they reserve the right to change their mind, and they called the CMA a forward-looking, whatever a value assumption or whatever you want to call it, a forward-looking estimation of value, while she felt like an appraisal was a rear-looking. So I guess I'd have a hard time telling you what to list your house for. Like that last sale that I did, it was it ended up going for $137,500, right after the competition, which was a very good deal in my area, just because nothing sells for that. But the appraiser had put 130 on it, and it ended up for the bank appraising for 151 or 154.
Wow.
So quite a range, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you're 15% off on a $140,000 house, that's okay. But if you're 15% off on a $2 million property, that hurts. If you're 15% off on a $10 million property, I think they get a little more loosey goosey, kind of when the stakes are maybe not as high. But my sister had an appraisal done. She wanted to refi 6 months ago, and the appraisal came in just a little bit low for her to hit her goal. She wanted to avoid PMI. That was her whole thing. She's like, if I could avoid this PMI, I save $220 a month. Let me try to go after this.
It's worth you getting an appraisal.
Exactly. Yeah, because she was going to be on PMI for another 6 years. So she refied to a 15-year loan, like 2%, and was going to get rid of PMI. But she needed like a $255,000 appraisal. It came in at like $248,000.
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, did the appraiser put his phone number on there? She said, yes. I said, call him and raise hell. She said, raise hell? You can't do that. I said, yeah, you can. Call him and raise hell. I said, you've made some updates to the house. You put granite in there. You've done some painting. You've done some landscaping. Tell them to relook at it. And she got it within $50 of where she needed it. She needed it at $256, and it came in at $256.5, the $500. So, did he mess up the first time? Yeah. Did he mess up the first time? Did he mess up the second time? Who knows? She got the payment she needs. It lowered her payment. She went from a 30 to a 15, so it raised her payment about $100 a month with cutting off the PMI. So It was really, really, really good for her. What she wanted, I told her to just keep with the 30, but she wouldn't. She's like, she wanted to get that 10%.
You can always pay more if you want to.
It's funny, man.
Day comes when you want to pay more.
Yeah, I explained that to her, and she's just like, I'm getting a 2% loan. I don't care. It's 2%. Okay, go for it. At the end of the day, if you're happy, you're happy. So, But she did. She contested that appraisal, and she won on that one. She got what she needed. So,
I've never wanted to pay more though.
Yeah, I don't know. My sister and my brother are both alike in the sense that they have got their financial goals tied to when their kids graduate high school. And so, like, for some reason, if for some reason they all graduate high school, don't go to jail, get in college, and their house is paid off at the same time, to them, I think that's nirvana. So they've all done that. Like, they all want to have the house paid off on graduation day.
Uh-huh.
And that seems like just the coup de grace to them.
Everybody graduates at the same time.
Yeah. And the house is paid for. Like, great. So, but
Let me show you what else I was talking about. So it was actually good information. What this lady was laying down. I think I can finish up pretty fast. A tab, Jamboard, share. Can you see it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the other thing, whenever do you know the difference between an average and a median? I'll tell you. So an average just takes it up. You got 7 numbers, you add them together and divide it by 7, right?
Average, 7 numbers, add them up all together, divide by 7, that gets the average. Yes.
That's right. So on a normal distribution, so the data you're comparing is mostly uniform. You can safely use the average aggregator. However, if your number set has some outliers and you need to consider using a median to filter out the values that are skewing the results. So on this normal distribution, you got these reasonably close numbers and you add them all up and divide by 7. There's your average 6. But on this, there's 7 numbers and they're kind of based in a normal distribution. You got that median, which is the middle. You can call it 5 is the median number. But if you got something that's skewed, you take those 8 numbers, and it's got the single digits, and then you throw 130 in there, and you divide that by 8. It pushes that average up. But meanwhile, if you find that median range, so there's 8 numbers, and you take the 2 in the middle, 3 and a 5, and divide those by 2, it equals 4. So it threw out the outlier with considering the median, right?
Yeah.
So I guess they talked about that in that course a little bit. But so the things that were helpful were how they plus and minus or weighted the comparables, and what the process they went through, being a look back instead of looking forward about a probability of sale. And they said that cost doesn't equal value. And another thing would be to maybe they're just, because of being in Louisiana, they brought up an analogy of which costs more, 4 pounds of dog food or 40 pounds of dog food. I guess that was the I don't have a reference from what they were talking about, but I wrote it down and I recorded it here. I thought I'd be able to figure out what it meant by then, but I don't know what she was talking about. Probably the bigger a house is in a grouping, that's what it was. The bigger a house is in the grouping, the less you would be able to get for it. You would be in an area that wouldn't support extrapolating out that higher price for the larger home in a given geographic area.
Did they talk? Oh, go ahead.
Being the biggest house in the area, you're going to diminish your value if you compare that bigger house to a bunch of bigger houses. That was the mean in a geographic area. I guess that's the meat of it.
Did they talk anything about, like, in this market specifically, where almost appraisals can't keep up with the sales? I mean, we're seeing it over and over again where the house is listed at $200,000, 6 offers come in at $240,000. The thing's appraising for $200,000, but they're selling, because the person, what somebody's willing to pay for it is not the same thing as what the appraiser's going to say it's worth. What are they doing to kind of mitigate that situation?
It brings in an important point, and they called it, faced with those situations, they went into an ROV, a reconsideration of value.
Yeah. Let me look at my figures. Maybe I took that tool off. Yeah.
Yeah.
It went up. Yeah.
So that's usually when somebody bitches or provides a lot more comparables. And she said, I'm human, I do what I can, but I'm human.
Yeah.
And another thing is, you think you pay for an appraisal? You think your sister thought she was paying for the appraisal? They do like a presto changeo fact and say, no, you reimburse the bank. The bank is my customer. I can't let you see this appraisal. You're not my customer, which I know that's pissed a bunch of people off over the years.
Yeah.
I've heard it, Seems like with my equity line, I think we get to see ours somehow. But there's no real middleman. I'm trying to think of why I get to see mine. Maybe my banker's just
all mine. I haven't had that card played on me where they would let me see it.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh, the house is appraising good. You just, you're too risky. We don't want to give you any money. I'm like, well, why did we wait till like a month into this process? Like, couldn't you have just Facebooked me or something and told me that to begin with? Like, we went through all this rigmarole.
To do what?
To get told no. Like, okay, well, you don't make any money. It's like, well, that's
like pay
my
for
job.
An appraisal. You paid for an appraisal before they told you no.
It's happened twice. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. And one with a local mortgage broker that was like, I'm going to get you in, man. I got you. We got some great products. It's all going to work out. And And then like right at the finishing line, he was like, have you got your 2018 tax return? I was like, yeah, no problem. And I send that right over to you. And he called me back like 10 minutes later. He's like, can you amend this thing? I was like, no, I can't amend it. It is what it is. Like, I didn't pay any taxes in 2018. It's great, right? He's like, no, it's bad. Like,
I spent that money,
taxes.
man. I bought some things on spec.
We rehabbed houses, man, and went to Cuba with Wally. Like, it was great. It was a great year.
I'm ready for it to be reimbursed.
Yeah. My Facebook group said you were going to do this, so you need to do this.
Are you still friends with him, or that end a relationship?
Yeah, it ended the relationship. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I should give him a little more grace. But I mean, I just really like, let's find the biggest roadblock that there's going to be and go ahead and tackle that, but like waiting for the biggest thing at the end, that's just a waste of my time. And for some reason, they don't want to do that. They always want to pull credit. It's like, man, I got a 780 credit score. I pay all my bills and have for 10 years. Don't worry about it. They want to pull credit. They want to talk about the property. They want to get everything else mise en place. And then the very, very end, they're like, all right, let's do this. Like, oh, you don't make any money. It's like, we could have told you that in the beginning. I'm a real estate investor and I want to zero out as much as possible and depreciate and expense everything out. Oh. But the good news is all these loans that we have are short-term loans, 8 to 10 years. And so my balance sheet is growing quickly, each month. That's a good feeling. I can literally look at it and be like, hey, we're making $3,000 a month of principal or $4,000 a month. So, I mean, there's a silver lining to it. And also, through the pandemic, when I called everybody, it was probably the middle of May, I called like 12 private lenders and was like, I don't know what's fixing to happen. I might not be able to pay you. And they were like, I called them all, man. I mean, if they had a $10,000 loan with me or a $100,000 loan with me,
I did too. I was just checking in. I got to, just calling a call.
Yeah. What do y'all want to do? And they said, they were all flexible. And we didn't have to miss a payment. We kept paying, but I can't do that with a bank. Actually, you could do it this go around, but that doesn't normally happen.
Right.
You say, hey, defer my payments for 6 months. So,
well, what's your plan?
The foreclosures have been slow to get rolling again. It's definitely not worth the time. There's just not enough inventory out there to really spend a whole lot of time chasing them. We're maybe seeing like 2 or 3 prospects a week. That's not even worth tracking real hard. When it gets to like 15 or 20 a week in our area, that would be closer to hitting gold every now and then. We're still following them to see what's going on, but I don't know if there's going to be a tsunami or what. Like, I just don't know. Are these people, are they catching up on their payments, or are other investors getting to them first, and are hedge funds buying? Because I'm sure the hedge funds could be tracking them just as easily as I am. Are they buying them?
Mm-hmm. The moratorium hasn't. The music hasn't stopped on the musical chairs. It hasn't stopped yet, right? It's people are still in forbearance officially.
Right. I guess till the end of July, maybe.
Yep. And they're either gonna have to sell. I mean, I'm just spouting what Kenny Mack said.
Yeah.
They're gonna have to sell, and hopefully their equity is grown enough to be able to afford to sell, or they're gonna have to requalify, or they're gonna go to foreclosure.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's my linear thinking is how do you stick a value on something in Des Moines or Phoenix? How do you do that? And do you spend $200 to a broker?
Yeah, get a BPO.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I've seen more and more banks doing banks used to be scared of holding inventory. They wouldn't do it. But I've seen more and more banks fixing up houses, throwing a roof on it, throwing an air conditioner on it, getting it fit and safe, and then throwing it on the market. So I don't know if we might see some more of that with some of these big banks. If they just say, hey, Zillow's
in the real estate business.
Yeah, we're in the real estate business. Let's do it. Because honestly, they're leaving a lot of money on the table not doing it.
Oh, yeah. But it's just an extra business.
Yeah, they don't want that liability. Historically, they haven't
That's what
wanted
we've
it.
always heard is like they get penalized for having bad loans on the thing.
Yeah.
But I think it's just new monetary policy. I think that's what's going to be another day, another change in the monetary policy.
Yeah.
You listen to Rich Dad Poor Dad? You listen to Kiyosaki?
I don't.
He's a little black helicopterish. But he says exactly what we know, but he verbalizes it pretty well. He said, I create wealth through debt. I create wealth through debt, and I store value. He said, why would you try to store value in anything that the government can print? So he's pretty anti paper dollars. I bet he takes paper dollars for his courses and stuff, but he says,
and for his rent and for his food. Yeah. But other than that, paper's out. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I'm really curious. I mean, you do the research on the guy. He didn't come out of the gate with Rich Dad Poor Dad. I'll put it that way. He's got some bankruptcies and failed attempts.
Yeah.
On some stuff, but I mean, he was at the right place in time for his message. So you kind of gauge, I respect McElroy, and that was his guy. So Kiyosaki, I think he's right on, but for some reason I don't want to go total QAnon to QAnon shaman on things.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, it's the agreed upon store of value is our dollar right now. Are you like, how do you feel about it?
Well, I mean, the dollar is 20% of the global interactions or interchanges. Is 26% of them are all fueled by the U.S. dollar and the U.S. economy. Ken McElroy had some guest on a couple months ago that was poo-pooing on people who want to talk bad about the dollar. Said, the dollar's not backed by anything. It's backed by aircraft carriers, and it's
Ken said
backed
that?
by the U.S. His guest did.
Yeah.
It's just like, you don't think the dollar's backed by anything? I mean, go turn on the TV. Look at the news. That's what it's backed by. We got strong consumerism. We've got strong military. We got oil and gas. I mean, and the world runs off the dollar. There's other currencies and other things out there, but nothing's coming close to what the dollar's doing right now. I know China's been growing a whole bunch over the past decade, but I mean, they're completely untrustworthy. You talk about manipulation and just, controlling everything. The government, mm-hmm. You think the dollars is controlled and manipulated? I mean, that's all part of their 5,000-year plan. I mean, the Chinese have got it dialed in. So I think it's just the devil you're going to dance with. I mean, it is what it is. But do I have any problems with the dollar? I worry about, I don't have a problem of having too much money that I got to store it somewhere. I'm still trying to make it. There are guys who are out there who are like, I've got all this money and I don't know what to do with it. A friend of ours, Rich on Facebook, put out there, he's like, how can I turn this $500,000 into two? Yeah.
Did you see my comment?
Yeah, distillery? I don't know. Yeah. What do you want to? I told him about.
I can't believe he took me seriously. He's like, that's a great idea. What should I call it? I said, drunk investor.
Yeah. But you're seeing this over and over again where these investors or people with cash are like, they're not finding any kind of returns and they don't know what to do. And they really are scared. If I just put this under the bed for the next 2 or 3 years, it's going to be worthless. And I totally agree with them. They're probably right. If they don't find somewhere to put it, it might not be worthless, like go to zero, but it will be worth less than it is today.
It's not adjusted for inflation. It is not a vehicle that's adjusted for inflation.
Yeah, it's going to go down with everything else. Right. But at the same time, is there anything wrong with having $500,000 under your bed? Absolutely not. There's nothing wrong with having some cash and being ready for whatever. I do think if the shit really does hit the fan and there's the Humvees are on the streets and it looks like Katrina again, they're still going to be trading in dollars, man. They're not going to be trading in gold. They're going to be trading in whatever they can get their hands on. But dollars is still going to be what it is. That's just it's going to be the main form of currency. So
yeah, it can get kind of granular. What do we got to barter with? I mean, we got this money. Let's use that.
Yeah. No,
Cool, man. Well, we did it again. 9:46. You want to bring anything else up?
No. I talked to Cindy a little bit today, and she's kind of found a rhythm out there in Carthage. She's been able to get some good deals under contract and finding the good.
She put something up with a realtor? Sold something with a realtor?
Yeah, she's been doing that. She's been doing some legit flips.
Mm-hmm.
She had the same issue pop up where an appraisal came back light, so it couldn't close. And then a month later, she gets in her contract again and it appraises 30% higher. So go figure. Yeah.
Joke.
I think same appraiser, so it's just like, you jack, But, I think there's just something to be said for looking at kind of what people enjoy doing and what's around them rather than chasing, certain investors through South Jackson, trying to keep up with them.
I know that created a lot more enjoyment for her. I mean, it was just trying to go play everybody else's game just because that's the thing to do is not necessarily, it's not good for everybody.
Yeah. Well, I've got an old investor here that got me started. I've talked about him with you, named Mac, that been buying and selling houses for 40 years. And I talked to him about moving markets one day, and he was just like, man, you know how much equity I've got in this market? And I was like, well, yeah, I know how much equity you got. I know what you got. And he's like, no, I know every shortcut. I know every neighborhood. I know people call me every day and see if I want to come look at a house. I'm talking about that kind of equity. Mm-hmm. And Cindy's finding that equity that she didn't even realize she had in Carthage, where people are like, they went to high school with her. They know her. They're talking to her. And now that she's operating there in town, she's getting some really good deals.
That's great.
Yeah.
She's trying to add value to it. And
yeah. And taking advantage of, I went to high school with these people. That's the equity right there. It's like they know me and they want to sell to me. They want to talk to me rather than going down there and trying to fit in with everybody else down in South Jackson where like you ain't going to fit in, So I was happy for her. Very happy to hear that.
Yeah. Well, you got any thoughts on how people, I mean, you got a beat on the arbitrage model, how people can partner with you if they got an piece of inventory?
I haven't figured it out yet. I really haven't. I've been trying.
If somebody called you North Mississippi or Louisiana, would you know how to partner with somebody? They're like, man, I like what you did to the place. I like your model. I believe in you.
No, honestly, I know how to use debt. I hate having other cooks in the kitchen. If we were to figure out a way where it was really, you're renting me the house and letting me do what I want with it, or you're partnering up and letting me do what I want with it, I think I could figure it out. But I've seen too many joint ventures just get sideways when it gets over budget or the product's not quite what they had both anticipated. I don't know if I've got the personality type for that. Like I like borrowing the money and I pay you back. Those are the two terms,
Weren't we talking about scaling a couple weeks ago?
No. So I'm going after, apartment complexes because I would prefer to try to do that arbitrage conversation one time rather than have this different menu of services and this different transaction over and over and over again. I know some people that are doing it pretty well. But it seems like an awful lot of work and an awful lot of expectation setting and meeting.
Yeah. A bunch of people could change. Well, multiple parties could change their mind in the midstream.
I mean, what do you do when you got 5 arbitrages and 5 different owners decide now's the time to sell? I don't know. I was listening to something one day and the lady was talking about how, we shouldn't focus near as much on cash flow as we should really just like cash flow and debt. And what I've seen you do down there in New Orleans, buying properties that'll actually appreciate and go up in value versus a bunch of class, C and Ds that cash flow like champs. Rachel and I are in that spot where we've got great cash flow, but our values, even during this huge appreciation bump, have barely gone up. We haven't created a whole lot of wealth. We're still in the game, but the next chapter of our investing book, I want it to be some more, real wealth creation rather than just cash flow.
Yep.
I mean, some of these houses, we hold on to them for another 10 years. Will they double in value? Probably not. They're always going to be worth the cap rate. That's just, they're going to be rent houses. And so they're only going to be worth how much rent they'll spin off.
Yeah, well, I think in areas outside of mine, having a multifamily that appreciates is kind of threading the needle, unless I'm wrong. I think it has to be no diminution in status to have multiple units for appreciation to kind of bloom.
Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with great cash flow if it is actually good cash flow. Airbnb and the group housing and the senior housing, those kind of things. You're bringing a higher and better use to the table than anything else. And so, if you take advantage of that cash flow, it's funding a great lifestyle, or you're able to buy more appreciating assets. That's kind of what we're trying to do. I wouldn't say it's just a horrible thing to do. Is try to get the cash flow and try to get a bunch of it, but it matters what we do with it. But I mean, like these guys who are doing senior living, they buy a $250 million house in Dallas, Fort Worth. They put 6 seniors in there. They're making $12,000 a month. The house isn't worth $1.2 million. That's how much it is on a cap rate. It's worth $1.2 million, but it's never going to sell for that. But I wouldn't poo-poo on for doing that. Like, make the money and go spend it.
If a hedge fund bought it at a cap rate, then it is worth it. But who knows if that's going to happen? Yeah. But we were talking about you like pretty houses. You mentioned it the other time, and your next phase might include some pretty houses that you enjoyed owning.
Yeah, not just the pretty houses, but that article that Mike Gunn shared with me about the hedge funds. Their criteria, they're buying in areas that are growing in population. Houses that are built after 1970. Those things matter just because, working on a 1940s or 50s house, keeping that thing up and running is no fun. It's a lot of work, rewiring it, doing the mechanics behind it, checking on the foundation. So I think I'd like to start taking some plays out of some of those books, buying newer houses that just aren't completely depreciated and, kind of hit that functional obsolescence. But I don't know. Right now, Marcus, to be honest with you, I'm learning for the first time how to just like hyper focus on what I've got to do right now for my business and try not to look at anything else. Right now it's get this next Airbnb up and done and take control of the McDill building. We got 2 suites over there that got to get, and they're not big needle movers, but like that's where all of my intentions going for the next 14 days. I'm not looking at deals. I'm not like notes for sale or notes to create or refis or anything. Nope. Just get those 2 things cash flowing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how about you? What you got going
on? Honestly, I'm putting quite a lot of energy on contacting people the way I think it needs to be done. And just you could take it out to anybody, your family, the people that are important to you, is just contacting them regularly. Definitely trying to get the EXP word out, and people aren't just saying screw you. I've kind of think I just relaxed in it a little bit, and I guess letting people approve if they want real early on, and just say it out there in a just normal tone. I said, are you interested in talking to me a little bit? And I think just that confidence, and I'm kind of over what I have to say. That's kind of, I know what I have to say, period. I have to get to the point and just say, is this in the realm of reality or in the realm of possibilities you'd want to talk to me? So I'll make you say yes twice before I even say it. But it's just I think, and following up with people, that's always valuable, regardless of what business you're in.
Yeah. At the beginning of the conversation, you mentioned you were getting a lot of the "I'm happy with my broker."
Yeah.
Is your first thought, or is there a thought that let me go talk to the broker? And
yeah, I try to make those on the independent. I do try to make those connections. I said, hey, listen, if I think it's good enough for you to bring this to your broker if you guys care about each other, because I think it's just that much of a game changer to want to partner with this organization, just because you're going to offload a whole lot. You're going to offload your liability. You're going to be able to scale and do the fun stuff like make relationships or do deals. You just bolt it on and off you go and scale your operation. So that's what it's been about. And so I can knock out what my numbers need to be in a few hours, and then I really do want to take some shots at different locations, my region as well. But I just think now's the time to start getting your chops together and talking to people outside of your area. Just making your database and making the connection, spending an hour or two, whatever it is, just to start making new relationships on two people that might be able to use your service.
Right.
I think I'm kind of trying to segment my day between pool time and kids in the summer, and those two things, just EXP and more acquisitions. I think I definitely I don't want any more management. I want the homeowners to manage. If you got anything less than one, then you got a management issue. If you got any house structure with more than one unit, then you have a management thing. So I guess my best case scenario, I think my next acquisition period, I'll be focusing on single family residence, or a building with like 4 or more than 4, where you could build in the management.
Yeah.
Have you ever done anything where the homeowner wanted to stay in the property? Were they in distress and they wanted to stay? Have you ever done anything successfully with that?
Not successfully. No.
There's been some crooked operations that get out there and save their bacon, put the money up for whatever it is to get off of the arrears. I can't remember how they always get crooked. Maybe they just take ownership for the part in arrears. You don't know any horror stories? I can't remember them. I know there has been some.
No.
The people that focus on the people in distress and go try to just bail them out for what they need to get back in the loan.
Yeah.
And then that doesn't solve the underlying issue. So they're usually going to be back in the frying pan after that. But
I don't know. I know that equity skimming used to be a thing that was actual, criminal offense, and then everybody got happy about, wholesaling and finding rock bottom deals, and everybody kind of forgot about that.
What is that? What's that scenario?
It basically, misleading somebody about the value of their house and getting a ridiculous price on it, taking advantage of somebody. It doesn't matter if you're an agent or not. Just some people used to get in trouble for equity skimming. And you don't hear about it much anymore, like you're helping the person out. But I mean, like Dallas Ketchum, he's tries to play by the book as best he can in this real estate world. He even sometimes signs contracts disclosing, I'm going to sell this house for a profit. I might sell it before, I might wholesale it. I might not even take title. Like, he discloses 5 or 6 different ways that he's going to make a profit off this thing. Are you still okay with it? Because he don't want to get any kind of trouble. you don't hear a whole lot about that now, but it's kind of sounds what you're talking about. Somebody comes in and says, "Hey, I'm gonna catch you up. Give me a second position or give me first position," knowing they're not going to succeed.
Here it is. What is equity skimming? Homeowners default on their mortgage property may be facing foreclosure. Another party, usually an investor, comes in and proposes to help by buying out the home before it gets foreclosed. The investor may ask the homeowner to convey title as security. Investor promises that they will return the property to them. Okay, after everything is cleared. However, what usually happens is that the investor will get title, refi the property, and take out all the equity, and then skip out or leave the situation, often physically leaving the town or county. The original owner is then left with a new foreclosure situation on their hands. Well, how do they do that? Who refinances?
Yeah, I'm not sure if the author of that paragraph really knew anything about real estate.
Yeah. another example.
They just do two loans, and then the homeowner's got another loan.
Yeah, that doesn't. This is a legal match. They've helped over 5 million people, David. But in other examples, the new investor may keep the original homeowner as a tenant in the home. They may eventually evict the original owner if the original owner doesn't pay, and then gain access to title that way. Here, the investor may charge much higher rent, forcing the owner to go into more debt, thus skimming off the equity from the home.
One way I've actually run across it in some of my business is in the foreclosures. And there's a law in Mississippi where it's got to be maybe 40 or 50% of the actual value of the house. So, for instance, I bought a house at foreclosure that was probably worth $100,000. We paid like $6,000 for it.
Nice.
And the lady was in the house, and she didn't know she had this old loan that she didn't even know existed anymore. Anyway, she got foreclosed. She ignored the mail. And so I carried it to an attorney because I'm trying to figure out, the best way to handle it. And he says, "Man, you gotta throw that thing like a hot potato." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he pulls out
$6,000.
He pulls out case law, and he's like, "You will get this foreclosure overturned," because the language they use in Mississippi is like, shockingly unconscionable price, commercially unviable, that kind of stuff. And there's laws that are maybe not written, but a judge is going to look at it and just say, "No, we're not going for that." It shouldn't be that cheap. And so I went to her and explained to her the situation we were in and didn't know how to get out of it. Anyways, I told her I'd sell it to her at half of the value of the house. I'd either rent it to her at half the value of rent, or I'd sell it to her at half the value of the house. That was the best I could do. And they actually bought it for $40,000 for us, which it was great. I didn't want to kick an old lady out. But what I really didn't want to do is have the foreclosure thrown out because it was commercially unviable.
Right.
So
they call it lesion beyond moiety in Louisiana parlance. Have you heard of that?
I have, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't buy it for. Well, you get in trouble if you bought it for less than 50% of the value.
Yeah. Oh.
I don't think there's any other kind of asset like real estate. It's rather unique. The fact that it could be, get an option on it, I guess, and you can, I don't know, it's pretty unique to be able to buy and sell it just like a commodity or an asset and still be able to live in it and then trade it on. It's just a powerful economic driver for sure, but pretty unique.
Yeah. No, I'm so glad I got into real estate, not something else. It just keeps getting sweeter. Like not only am I making rent money, but the things are going up in value. I'm paying down the debt. I get these tax benefits. There's a lot of cool things about it. But kind of when you first started saying that, how cool it is, I was thinking about the inefficiency of the marketplace. Like real estate.
That's exactly right. Which is coming. It might have a horizon date.
Yeah. I mean, it's just all over the place. What somebody will pay for it versus what somebody will sell it for. And then when you were talking about the CMAs, that's a professional trying to make efficiency in an extremely inefficient marketplace.
That's exactly right.
And so it's a moving target. It's just really tough to do. I mean, what really drives the prices of real estate is the cost of money. I mean, at the end of the day, that's it. I can guarantee if interest rates jump to 15% tomorrow, if Jerome Powell speaks and the crowd goes quiet, oh, it's 15%, the market's done, man. All these houses that were trading at $250,000 are going to be $100,000 because that's people are buying payments. That's all they're buying. Yep. So, oh, Jerome.
Well, you got any druthers for next episodes?
No, just chew on it, man.
Yeah, I kind of, there's this cat in Real Estate Confessions of a Real Estate Entrepreneur. I think I'd like to digest. I think this would force me to digest or redigest some important works of nonfiction.
I hadn't read that. Is it a good book? Is it like Kitchen Confidential for the real estate investors?
No, it's more by the book. It's less flowery. Maybe you have the Kitchen Confidential in you. It was a work of literature, right? It wasn't a how-to.
It wasn't a cookbook.
Well, anyway, I think this could force me to reacquaint myself with some important works.
It was funny. You were talking about Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And sometimes I have the same thought when I listen to him that sometimes I have when I listen to Pete Fortunato. And I think, do you have any money? Because Pete, you're in the same tie I saw you in back in 2010. You're talking about the same 6 deals over and over and over again. Like, do you have any money, man?
The people coming out were like, genius,
amazing.
Can't believe this guy's for real.
Yeah. Like, do you have any cash?
I attended one of his things, and I was like, someone coming out the bathroom, and he was like sideways glancing, like, "Hey, these are the top of the food chain. That's it. That's what I can aspire to."
Yeah.
Have you ever went to any happenings that bored you to tears?
I mean, day 2 of his options course, I was cross-eyed, and I don't know. I mean, it was good stuff, but I've never used any of it. I've been out buying houses, rehabbing them, getting them rent ready. I just hadn't put them in the application. Just go get some options. It's like, I'm not going to put down money unless I think I'm going to get a return. I'm not just going to go plant 30 options at $1,000 a pop. But that dude gets creative, man. Like giving options on give him an RV or a gas card, I mean, just get crazy, man. It's Prime Day. It's Amazon Prime Day. I'll give you some Prime gift cards. Just, do you want that today? Give me an option on the house for 5 years. Okay.
Do you listen to Miller's tracks?
I never have. Should I?
Mm-hmm. More of the same. You're like, option. I mean, it was 2008, and I was like, I'm done with the tool belt. I told myself, I'm done with it. It's like, what should I do? What should I do? And I knew somebody that knew Jackie Lang, and this Wally pursuit. Everything came from that phone call to Jackie Lang, and she spoke with me. Yeah, options, trailer parks, options. I'm like, where do I send the money, Jackie? Oh, yeah. right here, $500. I was like, I tore into it. I was like, I'm gonna be rich. But Jack just wound my brain around a pole, and I was like, what am I gonna do with that? And he was like, I really thought there was a limit you could do with options, but I just don't think that that's the case. And I think this is I'd have to think of it. He died in 2012 or 13, and this was within a few years of his dying. And like his manifesto after the culmination of all that he had learned, and it was rather advanced. But it's true, as I think back on it, I've always thought myself slow to the dance on pretty much every phase of my life, is that I'm just a little slower than most. Not quite as developed, but I really do think about it. And I tell myself I need to listen to it again as far as just an asset class and the reason that it is so unique. Like, smarter people than me can go into the stock market and buy an option to either short paper, which doesn't make sense to me as a non-collateralized asset. I mean, what happens if a value goes to zero? It just never really struck a chord with me. But you can play all those same kind of games with real estate, and I really do think that an on-time option and a straight option, I really think that there's room for it in the marketplace for markets that are going up or down. But I really do think you have to get out there and talk to people and groom people that it could work for. I'm talking about sellers and buyers of options.
Yeah.
You got to really know, you got to educate yourself and know what you're looking for.
Yeah, I've thought about doing it over in this West Fondren area. But the problem with it is you got to have options. You normally got to give some consideration, and the most commonly used consideration is cash. And like, I'll be damned if I'm going to throw my cash into an option.
Right.
I'd love to get there. I'd love to have 30 grand and be like, you know what? I'm going to go throw $1,000 options on houses at a fair market value. Just get a number out of them and ink it up for 10 years. But if I had a whole
assume that they're going to make the payments and taxes and do something resembling upkeep.
Yeah. I didn't think about that.
Well, Jack used to look for shit roofs and peeling paint.
Yeah.
And would paint somebody's house for an option.
Yeah.
Which would be a little cheaper than cash, potentially. But he was looking for market imbalances. And he said that he would, I'm going to flub on the numbers, but he said that he didn't know what he was doing, but he started making twice as much money. And he had a real estate license in Tampa, and he would go make an offer for, he was keen on the value, and he would offer like 10 or 20, something under market value, and he'd just wrap it up with a contract. He said, don't ever call an option, just call it a contract. And that was his strike price, what he called a strike price. And I struggled with that for years. What the hell is a strike price? But he had a strike price, and then he'd go either improve it or clean it up or something, and then have the position to be able to liquidate it, to be able to sell it. So I guess this option had a strike price, and it also had the approval to be able to exercise the option, which would be to list it on the MLS, I believe, or sell it on the open market and be able to collect that 10 or whatever percent that he got. And he said, I was able to do that. And he said he beat out listing agents, the people that wanted to list it, and he said he just beat them out with his option consideration.
But you say beat out a listing agent. I'm thinking the only person who's getting beat out by a listing agent is somebody who wants to sell their house. So how is he putting an option, not exercising the option? Like, how is a listing agent and what he was doing even the same game?
Well, he gave him consideration. A listing agent just wanted him to sign a contract. A person wanted to sell, and he would talk turkey. He put himself in as a principal rather than just a listing agent, who in essence has an option, right? A listing is an option.
Okay.
In my opinion, but even though the seller still has to approve, it's somewhat of an option. I'll get paid when I sell this at this price. you kind of agree that this is kind of an option, or call it a listing agreement, even though you're still in
I can't even. So you were talking about distressed homeowners?
No, just regular homeowners.
Just regular homes. So I mean, just give me a real world. I mean, how is that applicable like in today's market?
So
across the street from you, lady wants to sell it, nice house, $500,000.
Yeah, just talk to her about giving you an option to buy it within.
We can't call it an option.
No.
We said, let me sign
Write
a contract with you.
Write a contract with you to sell it for $450. I'll put $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 down if you let me buy it within the next 12 months.
Okay.
So if it's worth $500, then you'll run around like a striped ape trying to sell a thing. You're an interested party, perhaps more interested than you would be if you were a listing agent.
I guess I need to hear, like, what's this unique selling proposition? Like, why would somebody do that and not just list it and just go sell the house, put it on the open market? I mean, I know when people call me and they're like, hey, man, I need to sell a house. You know what I tell them to do? Throw it on the freaking MLS. You know, if you want to put it into many eyeballs as possible, put it on the MLS. I mean, you called about Pinedale. Hey, man, how are we going to sell this? Put it on the MLS. So, I mean, like, because if I'm going to get max value, I need to get it in front of max eyeballs. I just don't see how to make money on, I'm taking it off the major marketplace. I'm going to put an option on it, and I'm going to make more money than the homeowner could have made. How am I going to do that?
He was talking turkey. He was saying, I'll give you this. I'll give you $450. Just give me 6 months to close. You can make your plans. I got you. I think he was in a congruent market.
Yeah. I definitely would love to listen to tapes, because I do think that there's definitely some, I mean, there's obviously things to learn from it. Hell, I never thought an owner would finance a house. And that's been,
yeah.
My sister calls about a house next door to her that she heard that the grapevine's going to come up for sale. And I'm like, well, go talk to him before they put it on the market. She gets the guy's number and she's talking to him. She's like, what do I do? I was like, see what he wants for it, make an offer, ask him why he wants to sell it, and just ask him the probing questions. Like, wouldn't you like to avoid paying commissions? Wouldn't you like to avoid, not making repairs or filling out a property condition statement? Wouldn't you like to just sell it, without all those headaches? And she's like, well, what if I get her a contract? I was like, I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll figure out the financing. If you get a good enough deal, I can get you financed. So she's working that right now.
Isn't that interesting? She negotiates for a living and is kind of unsure about.
Yeah. She's like, I got to wait for it to come on the market. I'm like, absolutely not. You want to get to it way before then. So.
All right, that's it for this episode of The Wide World of Real Estate. Hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Marcus Tuttle and David Suggs signing off.